I'm Brian Linder, that was Mark Mendez. Let's just go and introduce ourselves, and maybe Mark and I are just architecture lovers. We know about this building, but we've got some experts to talk about their experience preserving, restoring, and rehabilitating this building. And so let's just state your names and kind of tell us what your role has been on this project.
Hi, my name is Dr. Barbara Lamprecht, and I'm the historical consultant for the building.
Sorry, I just have to say Barbara wrote the book on Richard Neutra, literally. She is the author of the Taschen book, the big coffee table book that we all know. So we're really pleased that Barbara's joined us today.
Corey Miller. I'm an architect with June Street Architecture. We've been working on this with Barbara for almost 10 years now, and we're really excited that it's about to be complete.
I'm Eitan Rosenblum. I'm the founder of Eitan Does LA, which is a website and social media presence, and it documents my visits to all of the LA County landmarks on the National Register of Historic Places.
Anand Topiwala, and I'm an architect with June Street Architecture.
So we're really excited to be here at the Jardinette Apartments, which is Richard Neutra's first project in the United States. And it's kind of hidden in plain sight here on Melrose and Western. It's a really seminal project in the international style of modern architecture in the world, really.
It is kind of amazing that a work that's this seminal, to use the word that you just did, was really Neutra's entree, at least as a solo architect in Los Angeles and the US. This is often called his first US solo commission, and it was designed in 1927, which was just a couple years after he had come to LA. He had emigrated to the US just a couple years before that. And he was working at the time with Rudolf Schindler, and they formed this firm together with, I think, one other planner called the Architectural Group for Industry and Commerce, which is kind of a grandiose name for a very small company. But the goal was to get commercial commissions, and this was one of the first commercial commissions that they got out of that partnership. There was a party in 1927 where Neutra met this developer named Joseph Miller, who, with some other investors, had bought like 7.5 acres in the Hollywood area, and their plan was to build a bunch of apartment complexes for Hollywood types. I mean, Hollywood was exploding in the 1920s, right? This was the only one that got built. I think there were a couple others that were actually designed. Even before it had been completed, the developer Joseph Miller went bankrupt, skipped town to avoid his creditors, and Neutra never even ended up getting paid for the project. And even though it had a really difficult beginning, the Jardinette Apartments earned Neutra a whole lot of press. And of course, in 1932, Neutra was the only West Coast architect who was included in this famous exhibition that MoMA put on that kind of laid the groundwork for the international style. What I'm curious about, and I'm hoping Barbara can talk about this a little bit, how the Jardinette fits in kind of the wider landscape of modern architecture in US at the time.
I was just going to say more internationally than nationally, because there are very few international style apartment buildings, reinforced concrete, in the world. So this is actually singular, although Schindler never wanted to take credit for this building. It was intended to introduce all the things that Neutra cared about: cross ventilation, with a lot of windows, a lot of light. Even in the tiniest apartments, there would be at least one or two paths of travel. But what you do by having many paths of travel, you allow everybody to be private and to forge their own path of travel, even in a small space. When Neutra submitted it for consideration for the Museum of Modern Art exhibition, they chastised him because in the photographs, which are slightly doctored, it appears that these are continuous stretches, continuous bands of windows, which of course they're not. If they were, they would be then speaking to Le Corbusier's idea of Pelotti and the free wall. They're not doing that. So he was chastised by Philip Johnson as being, hey, you're misrepresenting that. That is not, you have structure there.
There were originally 43 units in the building, and what we are returning the building to is the original 43 units. But what we first did was to really study the building to try to unwind all the changes that had been made. We did rigorous inventories of all the windows, which ones were broken, which ones had original glass, which ones had just replaced the glass. So we really started with trying to unwind everything that had been done. The other big task we had was trying to get new systems into the building. Obviously, it didn't have air conditioning in 1926, so we were trying to figure out how to get heating and air conditioning. There were gas wall heaters that have all been removed, so all of the vents on the side of the building have been removed to kind of get that clean white banding back on the side of the building. We upgraded the electricity, and then the building was completely replumbed. But everything as far as plumbing stayed exactly where it was.
In terms of like the bathroom layout and the kitchen layout.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Moving forward, at some point, the current owner wanted to make some of these units accessible because the building was not really, obviously in 1926, not really built to ADA standards. Anant was really the leader on that, so I think I'm going to let him talk about the accessibility upgrades we did.
Yeah, so I think the trick to making a building like this accessible was working with a really smaller footprint for like bathrooms and things like that. What we did was, instead of making them fully accessible, we got them to be as compliant as possible. And in terms of finishes, I worked really closely with Barbara on the finishes. We also worked really closely with the current owner to expose all the historic tile and the historic flooring, and we did a lot of patching and repairing. And so it's kind of unique in that sense that you walk into the bathrooms now and you see a patchwork of what's old and what's new. And what we wanted to do was also try to distinguish between the old and the new. Originally what we wanted to do was plaster. We wanted to plaster above the box cap.
Which is on top of the tile.
Correct, and that's because in 1927 there were no showers. It was all just tubs, right?
Yeah.
So we were trying to come up with creative solutions of okay, how do you waterproof? These are stand-up showers now, right? So what we ended up doing was trying to find a tile that was, similar to the historic tile, but then what we wanted to differentiate it from tile that the layout that's there. We also worked really closely with the city because they had requirements for how this building should be restored, right? So we knew that we had to restore this main facade here.
Maybe you guys could talk about your relationship with the current owner and how you guys got involved, because that is a testament to the current owners, stop, pause, and think, wow, this is an incredible project. Who do I need to speak to make it the best restoration possible at this point?
From working on the project at the beginning, at a certain point, the owner we began working for didn't own the building anymore. Cameron acquired the building, and I got a phone call, I think, as he was in escrow. And because we had been involved, heavily involved, we'd presented to the commission, we'd been working closely with Barbara, I think he thought it was best to just kind of keep the band together. We were happy for that because at this point, for Barbara and I know this is kind of a labor of love. When you've been working on one project for 10 years, at some point, you kind of just want to see it completed.
All right, I kind of interrupted you, but tell us before you hand it off to Barbara, what is the schedule? When are you anticipating completion of construction?
I don't know.
Cameron says end of year. I'm thinking
what
April.
do you want me to say?
I know, right? Cameron, April,
And back to the current owner, I can't say enough for him, and I don't care that he's 50 feet away. I love that he has been, despite everything, all these people coming at him from all points of, everyone, he's kind of persevered like a bulldog and just really, hung on to it. He could have sold a lot of times, but here we are, we're finishing and we're seeing what is emerging as an international masterpiece. It is going to be a jewel in Los Angeles again.
As Barbara said, we feel like this is really a gift to the city from Cameron and his team and this team that's worked so hard for decades, literally. It's like a gift to the city. It's not easy to do a historic preservation, restoration project like this after a project's already been registered as a landmark, because everybody is scrutinizing your work. The ideal thing to do is to buy a property that needs work and then register it. So that made this even that much more difficult. And the fact that Cameron took it so personally and has invested the kind of blood, sweat, and tears into this project, we think is a gift to the city that will remain kind of in perpetuity.
Cameron, is there going to be a website or something that someone can try to apply? Can they do that now? Is it set up? Okay, so there will be a website, I'm hearing, that you guys can apply to, and it'll be interesting to see who occupies it.
So stay tuned. We'll be coming back toward the very end of completion to take another look, and we're really grateful to have this opportunity to visit and grateful to this team for what you've done and for joining us today.
Yeah, you guys
Thank
have
you
done
so
an
much.
incredible job. Yeah, you guys should be proud and can't wait to do this when it's completed.